районе, гора Квиток, обнаружена артиллерийская батарея.
The issue on the ground, the presence, as they say, boots on the ground, is important to us. It is too early to talk about this. First, the infrastructure will be prepared. And of course, the Ukrainian army plays an important role in this infrastructure.
President Putin and President Trump encourage.
And the guarantors would be guaranteeing the security of Ukraine, which must be neutral, which must be non-aligned with any military bloc, and which must be non-nuclear.
3 years ago, the world watched in disbelief as Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, a sovereign nation. But is Russia losing the war now? The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has been a brutal and transformative force, reshaping geopolitical alliances and challenging long-held assumptions about modern warfare. So let's find out what's next. In the complex world of international diplomacy, where the stakes are nothing less than global security and human lives, precision and factual accuracy are not merely virtues, but absolute necessities. A philosophy reminiscent of a character from the 2004 UK film Layer Cake comes to mind, where a crime boss barks orders from the comfort of his secluded estate, demanding to be insulated from the minutiae and notified only upon a task's completion. While a fictional parable, this approach finds a modern parallel in an observed tendency to prioritize grand announcements over granular policy work. This is not to suggest a complete disengagement, as there is a reported fastidiousness applied to the aesthetics and branding of personal commercial ventures, from the decor of hotels to the presentation of golf clubs. However, in matters of statecraft and diplomacy, the focus appears to shift dramatically away from complex details toward a belief in the power of personal relationships and direct leader-to-leader negotiation. This operational method aligns with a historical concept known as the Great Man Theory, an idea championed by the 19th century thinker Thomas Carlyle, which posits that history is primarily shaped by the actions of singular, influential heroes. This perspective often minimizes the profound roles played by deeper structural forces like cultural shifts, historical contexts, and political and economic systems. In practice, this translates to a worldview where every international challenge is highly personalized, framed not as a clash of national interests or ideologies, but as a matter of individual rapport between leaders. This was notably illustrated during a recent gathering of European leaders, where a candid moment revealed a belief that a major world leader, Vladimir Putin, is principally motivated by a desire to make a deal for me, as if geopolitics were a transaction between two personalities rather than a complex negotiation between nations. This emphasis on personal chemistry was further underscored by subsequent remarks regarding the prospect of a summit between the leaders of Russia and Ukraine. The principal obstacle to such a meeting was characterized not in terms of irreconcilable political positions, the status of occupied territories, or long-standing security concerns, but rather as a simple matter of mutual personal dislike, comparing their relationship to oil and vinegar, two substances that fundamentally cannot mix. This framing reduces a devastating war with immense global ramifications to a personal disagreement, awaiting the right mediator to resolve a clash of personalities. While interpersonal dynamics can play a role, this viewpoint risks oversimplifying deeply entrenched conflicts, placing tremendous faith in the notion that a single handshake deal, brokered through force of will alone, can substitute for the painstaking, detail-driven work of diplomatic engagement that has traditionally been the bedrock of international relations. The deeply personal animosity between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin is a significant yet unsurprising element of the ongoing conflict. From President Zelensky's perspective, this is a matter of profound principle. He leads a nation that has endured a brutal invasion ordered by President Putin, an invasion marked by documented war crimes and a tragic cost of tens of thousands of Ukrainian lives, both military and civilian. This includes the disturbing forced transfer of approximately 20,000 Ukrainian children to Russia for political re-education. Conversely, it is likely that President Putin holds little regard for President Zelensky, who has become the resilient face of a smaller nation's defiant and unexpectedly successful resistance against what was intended to be a swift imperial conquest. However, to attribute the current diplomatic impasse solely to this mutual personal dislike would be to misunderstand the core strategic calculations at play in Moscow. A primary reason a bilateral summit remains elusive for the Kremlin is that formally meeting with President Zelensky would, in Russia's view, confer a level of political legitimacy upon him that it has spent years attempting to undermine. This position was recently articulated by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who stated in an interview that Moscow considers the Ukrainian leadership illegitimate, thereby creating a pretext for refusing direct negotiations. Beyond this rhetorical posturing, there exists a more complex strategic motive. By deliberately creating obstacles to a summit, the Kremlin is effectively engaging in a tactic of delay and obfuscation. This approach appears designed to manage its relationship with the United States by stringing along the new administration while simultaneously avoiding any action that might provoke its stated wrath. Former President Trump has warned of severe consequences if Russia does not engage seriously in ending the war, though he has not publicly detailed what those measures would entail. Analysts suggest that should the U.S. follow through, the most probable response would involve imposing secondary sanctions on nations that continue to trade with Russia, aiming to cripple its ability to sell fossil fuels and finance its war machine. While sanctions alone are unlikely to bring Russia to its knees, such a move would be highly disruptive for an economy already facing a recession and struggling with a widening budget deficit. For President Putin, however, a swift end to the conflict short of a victory he can claim domestically carries its own severe risks. The war economy has created a precarious stability. An abrupt transition out of it could unleash dangerous socio-political turmoil. As experts note, ending the war would trigger a fierce and vicious competition for diminishing resources across all levels of Russian society. This hot ongoing conflict serves an internal purpose, providing a continuous justification for increased political repression and channeling public sentiment through the powerful, controlling narrative of patriotism. Trump's view, according to many analysts, appears to align with a strategy that, intentionally or not, could benefit Russia. A prolonged conflict in this interpretation could serve to further strain the economies of European nations, potentially leading to a weakening and fracturing of the transatlantic alliance. This scenario of a distracted and divided West could also be advantageous to Russia's ally, Chinese President Xi Jinping, as he considers his nation's future actions regarding Taiwan. Furthermore, Ukraine's significant manpower shortages present a critical vulnerability. There is a tangible risk of a frontline breakthrough that Ukrainian forces may be unable to reverse. This could allow Russia's Vladimir Putin to secure more territory, negotiate for weakened Western security guarantees, and place a cap on the size of Ukraine's post-war military. Such outcomes would effectively set the stage for a future resumption of hostilities by Moscow at a time of its choosing. As Fiona Hill, former National Security Council Senior Director for European and Russian Affairs, has argued, Putin's ultimate goal is a neutered Ukraine, one that cannot withstand future military pressure. This objective, Hill asserts, is widely recognized, with the notable exception of Trump. Given this dynamic, a key challenge for those seeking to influence Trump's foreign policy is how to engage with him without provoking his ire, while simultaneously keeping him involved in diplomatic processes. One approach, reportedly employed by figures like Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, involves a strategy of entangling interlocutors in a web of complex details, digressions, and diversions. This artful manipulation can involve discussing the root causes of the war and leading American officials down rabbit holes of intricate explanations. Simultaneously, this tactic often includes framing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Kyiv as the party responsible for any lack of progress toward a resolution. Lavrov's public statements, such as his interview on Meet the Press, reflect this strategy by consistently placing the blame on Zelensky, a charge that may resonate with Trump, who is known for his impatience with complex details. The historical and cultural underpinnings of Russia's view on this conflict are also significant. Lavrov himself once recited a poem by Alexander Pushkin, "To the Slanderers of Russia," which is popular among Russian nationalists. The poem frames conflicts between Slavic nations as an internal family matter that outsiders cannot and should not attempt to resolve. The verses state, "'Tis but Slavonic kin among themselves contending, an ancient household strife, oft judged but still unending, a question which be sure ye never can decide." Don't you think his sentiment states a deep-seated Russian perspective that views the Ukrainian conflict as an internal, not a matter for international intervention? Let us know in the comments what you think, and if you want to stay on top of this, smash that like and subscribe button.